Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. You are now entering Season 2 of the Swan Hockey Podcast. Swan Hockey is flying around the junior hockey world one episode at a time. You'll experience things dreams are made of, as well as things of terrible nightmares. Strap in, hold on, and enjoy the ride. And now, Swan Hockey.
Hey guys, our new merch drop is live now on SH360. Visit 360.swanhockey.com and you can access it now. Once an item is gone, it may never return. You can also check the time capsule for older items. All SH360 purchases have season pass points attached. Just make sure that you use the same email address on SH360 as you do for Swan Hockey Digital. For more information or help with season pass, join the Discord.
Pretty high up on the scale of great events.
Yeah, for sure. Now I want to have a little fun with you now. So I'm USHL commissioner for 5 minutes. I want to tell you what I would do. This is all in fun. And let's say we were going to, we were going full boat competing with the CHL. And I want you to tell me, good idea, bad idea, or something that you guys are considering, or something that you can't talk about.
Sure.
So, all right. So the first thing that I would do is I would eliminate Canadians from being imports. I would allow as many Canadians across the board in the league that the league could get. The CHL, they allow as many Americans to come over there that their teams can get. I would do the same thing for two reasons. One to increase the player pool to get the highest end talent in. And then the other thing is, theoretically, if a player leaves the USHL to go to the CHL, theoretically somebody from the CHL is getting cut. I would want to make sure that we can get that player.
So, well, look, you are right in the sense that, between the 60 CHL teams, I guess now 62, and our 16 teams, we have a different responsibility. Our relationships through USA Hockey, our sanctioning is with USA Hockey, and USA Hockey's primary goal as a national governing body for the sport is to grow the sport and make the sport possible and accessible for American athletes.
Yeah,
and that
100%. Sorry, not to cut you off, Glenn. That's what I was saying. Like, just strictly from a point of competing with them, right? Not, again, like that's a whole, like, I know that point exists, and that's extremely important.
So,
but go ahead. I just wanted to let you know that, but no, go ahead. Feel free to expand on that.
I think our general managers would probably, many of them would take a liking to that. Let's just develop players that want to be here. I think there's some other complications to it that are being worked out with, how teams are contracted and so on. And all of those issues are yet to be worked out. So there's not much I can comment on that.
Sure.
But I would say that, when you consider the level of play and the level of player that we're developing, whether we're talking about the CHL or the USHL, there is a fine line of what is that line in terms of non-Americans or non-Canadians for CHL teams. And I think we have found a good balance, certainly up until this past year. This past year, I think that 92% of the CHL was Canadian on the overall, and I think for the USHL we were 78% American. So I would argue that we've had far more foreign player influence, because there's another rule in play, and I think we do have to try to remember that families move here because of parents and their work responsibilities, and they stay here a very long time. And some of their children are born here, and then they start playing in our programs, but they're not yet, or they come here at an early age and they're not citizens. And so we have these residency and citizenship requirements. Thankfully, USA Hockey has the wherewithal to have a policy that says once a player is here and he's played or she's played 3 years in the youth system, their eligibility as a foreign player they don't get put towards that count. And so I think that's part of the reason why our numbers are a little bit greater, because we do have a lot of kids that play the sport that are not Americans, that live here, like genuinely. They weren't brought here to play hockey.
Right.
They live here with their families and so on. Right. And so I think the CHL has had a far greater impact for the Canadian player. And, as I said, we were at 78% American. So I think we have found a happy balance. And I think whatever we do, and there's a lot of discussions going into this right now, whatever we do, the rules need to be equalized for everybody in North America. Whatever those rules are going to be, it needs to be equalized. And I think we'll get to that. I think you'll see something like that come about within the next year or so.
Okay. All right. Yeah. The second thing that I would change, and I imagine that the last part of that first answer is going to be a big part of this answer. I would bump the 20s. I would allow more 20-year-olds to play in the league, especially that the CHL limits the amount of 20s. There obviously, there's some good 20-year-olds that aren't going to be able to play there. I would make sure that they're able to come play here.
I think the philosophy for us has been overall, it's not every team's philosophy, but I think overall, we're getting younger, and it's for good reason. We want to impact the draft eligible year.
Okay.
And so in order to do that, you have to have spots for those players to play. And that means making sure that 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds are in an environment where they actually can play and compete. You have too many 20-year-olds, that becomes a challenge. And so if you were to look at our birth year on a chart, you'd see basically a bell curve. So a few 16s, a lot more 17s, 18s, 19s, and then a drop off at 20.
Yep.
And so we have a maximum of 4. They have a maximum of 3. As I said, I genuinely believe our pathway, is through younger talent, and making sure that when I took over, that was one of the comments that was made to me is, Glenn, your league's too old. You got to get the league younger. And I said, I don't know that that's actually true. I had examined rosters, and so I did the math and looked at it, and our average age my first year, 23-24 season, we were 18.6 years of age. This past year at the start of the season in October, we were 18.1, and I think the CHL was 17.9. And so, we're a couple of months apart. And so I think the younger talent is where the upside is. We have room for 4. I don't think we're too heavy. I think we're just heavy enough. And that's why people, if you ask any NHL scouts, they will tell you that this is a hard league to score in. It's a hard league to play in. And I always quote Rand Pecknold from Quinnipiac. We did our draft in 24 in his arena. And they were so gracious to let us be there. And I ran into Rand Pecknold and just had a chat. And he says, I don't consider the USHL a development league. And my heart sunk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where's he going? And I thought like, oh, this isn't going to be good. He goes, I consider your league a survival league. I go, what do you mean? He goes, we get players from the USHL in Quinnipiac. He goes, we throw everything at them. They're just battle tested. They can handle everything. He says they're physically strong. They're mentally tough. He says the league does an amazing job. And so I think those are, that's a testament to how we're structured, to the age of our rosters. One of the things we hate change, but we're always tinkering. We're always looking to, and maybe we actually have it right. Maybe we actually are in the right place for the number of 16s, the number of 20-year-olds, the number of games, how we schedule. Like I think we've got it right. I think we are a great continuation of the American development model. And that, I think that's only going to continue. And we have an address coming up with the NHL general managers in the beginning of September, which we believe leads into a meeting with the board. And we're looking forward to sharing where we're at and illustrating to them what their investment has done over the last 10 years. And so that's our goal. We want to continue that growth with the NHL, and I think that's going to continue.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, and the third thing that I think the third thing that I would change is I would add another showcase. And I would continue to brainstorm other things, because in my mind, I think, in terms of competing directly with the CHL, obviously, again, it's different, right? But we're playing, we're having some fun here. But their budgets are a lot higher.
I like that idea. Well, listen, their budgets are higher in some respects because they have bigger buildings and so on, and people forget they've received NHL funding, massive NHL funding,
100%, right? And that's one of those
for decades.
Yeah, and
that's for decades, and so,
yeah. And that's one of those things I'm saying, like the budgets are bigger. Even if you have a team in your league that says, hey, we're going to go out and spend that money and we're going to fly the team everywhere, we're going to pay to players, we're going to give out school packages, you're going to be like, no, you're not, right? Because it's got to be standardized across the league, right? So it's a different model. So in my mind, it's like, okay, what else can we come up with that we can give the players to increase the experience, to make some of those guys that are leaving for the CHL want to choose to stay here? Right? Like what else?
Well, again,
I
think that's it's the new shiny toy on the block, and that that happens, and then the dust settles, and everybody realizes, well, the grass, everybody thinks it's greener. It's just as hard to mow.
It's time for the Season Pass Point Unlock code for Episode 14. The Episode 14 Point Unlock code is NET. Enter the code at www.swanhockey.io to receive your points. Season Pass is free to join. To join or to learn more, visit Swan Hockey Digital at www.swanhockey.io. And now, back to the show.
And no matter where you are, this is hard to be an elite athlete. And so I know what we've perfected. I know what our numbers look like. I know what our draft numbers have been. And as I said, we far exceedingly, and I think one of the things that people tend to discount is that we're only a 16-team league, okay? And so when you look at our numbers from a performance standpoint, on a percentage basis by team, we're actually outperforming the next league from an NHL draft standpoint by 31%.
Now, does that include the NTDP, or does that not include the NTDP?
Well, no, of course. But even when you pull that, actually, Brad Elliott Slossman did this exercise last year sometime and pulled the NTDP out, which I don't know why people always want to say that. The USA Hockey and the NTDP are a member of our league. They play in our league. That would be like saying, well, let's not count London in the OHL's numbers. That's absurd.
And listen, I'm one of those people. So I have no problem telling you, I'm one of those people, and I'm gonna share my thought with you, and then tell me, so my
sure.
feeling has always been, and then we'll come back to the showcase thing in a second, but my feeling has always been,
I like that idea, by the way.
The showcase idea?
I like that idea.
Yeah, I think it could. Mm-hmm. I think it could be good. If you add, it's another incentive. I mean, it would obviously draw a ton of schools, if not every school, and obviously you guys do lots of showcases and stuff for helping guys get into the league. If you take that, take a showcase approach and helping guys get out of the league, obviously the Fall Classic is a big success. Why not duplicate it one or two more times throughout the season?
So we do, let's stay on that topic for a second. So we do that. We do one in Rochester, New York, called the American Cup. And then we do the Frosty Cup in Dallas. The difference is there's only 2 USHL teams there, and we bring US, youth programs in to play as part of a showcase. But there has been some expressed feelings from some of the folks in the NHL that we should look at doing even a conference, taking the Western Conference and doing a showcase midweek. And they cite it for scouting reasons, of course.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you think about it, we give the NHL and the college community a really good opportunity to see all of our players in one shot, all 16 teams. And so there is a benefit to it. And I think by offering, doing an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference, that is in discussion. So there is conversation around having a showcase event like that, but maybe doing a conference style midweek, making it possible for the scouts to come in, spend 2 days, and then they get back on the road and, do what they have to do. So it's a great question. And it's something that we've definitely looked at.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome. We'll do. All
right, now to your NTDP point.
Yeah. We'll do the Swan Hockey Challenge from created on the podcast. So
there you go.
So my my feeling with the NTDP, and it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because everything I'm about to say is not your fault, and you shouldn't necessarily lose credit for those players in the league because it's not really the USHL's doing, as far as my knowledge, right? It's not your fault that the NTDP exists. And but my feeling with the NTDP is that it's different, right? If it wasn't different, it wouldn't exist. They would just put those kids in the USHL, but they don't, because it's a different environment. Everything's different. They don't play the full schedule, right? Like it's a split in the USHL between the 17 team and the 18 team. So it's not like the draft eligible kids are, or that it's not like the one team is playing a full schedule. Everything about it has just been different, even to the point, and this is the first year that I'm seeing it different on the USA Hockey transfer form that the two federations agreed on. They had the NTDP with the CHL on the compensation form, and then the USHL a tier below that. But I think that really doesn't play a major part. I just think more the day in, day out, it's different.
That's been the case for years on the compensation form.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's the smallest issue in all of it, at least for me.
Yeah, and that's either going to go away. That transfer agreement is either going to go away, or we'll have a new one.
Yeah, I think there's a new one now.
Trust me, it's still in full force and effect. It's called the
another
US Hockey Canada. It's called the USA Hockey Canada Transfer Agreement, and that's still in place. And we're in the midst of working to negotiate a new transfer agreement with all the parties. But that aside, so you have to look at the National Team Development Program, because they do play a full schedule in the USHL. They're eligible for playoffs. But
I'm saying not the same group of players, right? The 18 team plays half the schedule, the 17 team plays the other half of the schedule.
So look at it as the difference is that they have a roster of 46, where everyone else has a roster of 24.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. And it's different.
It's different because they have a bigger roster, or that part of it is different. But I understand their mission is different.
That's what
they're
I'm saying.
Training players that they expect to use by and large in international competition.
Right.
And that's what their functionality is. So the team's got to play somewhere. And so, to suggest that those players play as 17-year-olds and then they play as 18-year-olds in the USHL. And, the counts change depending on team availability and how the international breaks work and all of that other stuff. But at the end of the day, they play, it's 46 players playing a full schedule in the USHL that are eligible for playoffs. And so I know people like to make that, you're counting NTDP. NTDP players play in the league. In fact, some of those players go on to continue to play in the USHL. They just play with other teams.
And I do see that
and
point.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just an absurdity that I think has gotten some people amped up about it. And the reality is, if NTDP goes away, those players would be playing in the USHL. And so,
do you think they all would though? I don't think they all would. I'm not saying that majority wouldn't, but I'm saying like that's one of those questions that, we would never know the answer until it happened.
Yeah. I mean,
right. And I do see your point.
Yeah. I mean, until such time that they're a member of the league, we're proud to have them. I think,
for sure.
I think they do a lot of things that, people have to turn the clock back in the early years of NTDP and, when they played, also in the North American League and so on. But that program has helped drive the standard. And it's the reason why we have had so much success as a league. Because again, if you go back, I mentioned Brad Elliott Schlossman, he did the data, the raw data, and said that if you pull NTDP out and only examine the USHL, but take into consideration that it's only 15 teams, we're still outperforming in the NHL draft. And so that's the point. And so it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Yeah, bragging rights are always fun, but you still have to do the work. You still have to maintain. You still have to go out and recruit and get the best players and get the best coaches. I look across the NHL and college hockey, and I see so many USHL alum. I mean, as I said, we have a And we have a terrific fan base that really supports their teams. So the things are fine. Like we tend to make. Do you remember when we all thought when they introduced cross ice mites? Oh my gosh, the sport's ending. It's terrible. Yeah, it's never been better. Like we make a big deal out of these things, and we really shouldn't. Stay focused. An eligibility rule change, not how we develop players. Yes. We still develop players the same way, and we're going to continue to do it. I think I don't want to use names because it wouldn't be fair, but I think of a couple of players who I think at this time last year, in one particular player's case, was hoping to make the team he was trying out for in the USHL, and that player ended up getting drafted in the NHL. And so, as I said, I think we take really good players and we make them better players, because that's what our model does. 2-to-1 practice to game ratio will make you a better player. You're not riding on a bus. You're not jamming, a lot of games into a smaller time frame. Like, that's the benefit of what. And maybe if we're guilty of anything, Eric, we need to do a better job at getting that message to players rather than just following the noise. Understand what we do and how we do it will make all the difference in the world for a player's career. And as I said, I'll use these examples. We're not party to a CBA with the NHL. We haven't had decades of hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. And there's an institutional preference, if you will, within the sport. And we don't have any of those advantages. And yet here we are with more drafted players accounting for more than half of college hockey. And by the way, just to use an example, Frozen Four this year, 79 players were USHL alum in the Frozen Four, 79. Like, those things are not happening by accident.
No, so, and that's why I said in the beginning, you guys on the world stage have dominated the space.
And we're going to continue to, I'm not going to say dominated. We have done exceptionally well, and we're going to continue to do exceptionally well. If 31%, if outperformance on NHL draft is 31%, and that's considered dominating, well, then guilty is charged. But our goals are definitely aligned to continue to be the best development path.
I'm saying in terms of
to outgrow the game.
Yeah, I'm saying in terms of the college placement, like you said with the Frozen Four, that I'm saying with the college placement, like you guys have dominated on the world stage for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously that probably has a lot to do with the rule, for sure. When 1,500 players are not eligible, but again, when you start comparing the products, like as I said, I think when we can offer a 2-to-1 practice to game ratio, that is a game changer for any young developing player. These are not NHL players; they're not. And nobody should thinking that treating them as NHL players and making them train the way NHL players train is foolish. They're 16 with an average age of, 18.1. These players need more training. They need more training. So I think most players understand that.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, and I'm again, thank you so much for doing this. I was going to ask you if there's anything you wanted to close with, but I don't know if that was it or if you got anything else that you wanted to close with.
No, I'm pleased. I'm happy to have been part of this. And as I said, I don't turn down any interviews I get. It's just usually a function of time for me, but I'm happy to do these. And as I said, I think it's important that we get our message out. Perception in our sport is a very powerful thing. And so I think that's probably the one thing we want to make sure we continue to do is to help players and families understand what exactly we do in the USHL and the success we've had, because you don't stop being successful as long as you're not changing up how you continue to develop and train players. And that's what we're going to continue. And we're going to get even better at it.
Well, that's awesome. And Glenn, thank you again very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Best of luck this year.
All right, man. Thanks. Be well. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Swan Hockey Podcast. We remind you that season pass points are available to listeners. For more information, please visit www.swanhockey.io. Until next time.